The sky darkened to an ominous shade of charcoal as rain pounded against the glass enclosures of Wildwood Sanctuary. Lou's heart raced in her chest, each thunderclap sending tremors through her golden Labrador frame. She had become separated from the staff during the evacuation, panicked whimpers escaping her throat as she scrambled across the slippery pathway. A deafening crack split the air as a massive branch crashed through a nearby fence. Disoriented and terrified, Lou tumbled down an embankment and through a maintenance door left ajar by the wind. When she finally regained her footing, she froze. 6 pairs of amber eyes gleamed in the darkness, watching her. The tiger's massive forms emerged from the shadows, muscles rippling beneath wet striped coats as they encircled her. Lou's breath came in shallow pants as the largest tiger, a scarred male, took a deliberate step forward, nostrils flaring as he caught her scent. Hope you enjoyed this story. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear where you're watching from. Now, let's continue with the story. Eleanor Ellie Patterson had never intended to adopt a dog. As the lead conservation specialist at Wildwood Sanctuary in Montana, her life was already filled with the countless responsibilities of caring for endangered species. But fate had other plans for her that rainy April morning 3 years earlier. She'd been driving along the winding country road toward the sanctuary when she spotted a bedraggled golden bundle on the roadside. Pulling over, she discovered a trembling Labrador puppy, ribs visible beneath her wet fur, eyes wide with fear and confusion. "Poor thing," Ellie murmured, wrapping the pup in her jacket. "Someone just abandoned you out here, didn't they?" The local shelter was overcrowded, and something about the puppy's soulful brown eyes tugged at Ellie's heart. By the end of the day, the puppy, now named Lou, had a new home and a unique workplace. The sanctuary staff welcomed the cheerful canine addition, quickly discovering Lou's remarkable temperament around the resident animals. "She's got a gift," observed Dr. Marcus Calloway, the sanctuary's senior veterinarian, watching Lou sit calmly as a recovering owl was examined nearby. "Most dogs would be going crazy with all these different animal scents." Lou flourished at Wildwood, trotting alongside Ellie during her daily rounds. Though she couldn't enter the enclosures, she would sit attentively by the observation windows, tail wagging as she watched the sanctuary's inhabitants. The staff often found her carrying small items in her mouth, seemingly eager to help with daily tasks. "She thinks she works here," joked Margaret Reynolds, the sanctuary's primary benefactor, during one of her visits. "More dedicated than some of my employees back at the foundation." Life settled into a pleasant rhythm for Lou and Ellie until that fateful autumn morning. Ellie was reviewing feeding schedules when her phone rang. The caller's voice was urgent, tinged with distress. 3 tiger cubs abandoned," she explained to Dr. Calloway after ending the call. "Poachers got the mother. Wildlife authorities found them while raiding a trafficking operation." "Cubs? How young?" Calloway adjusted his glasses, concern evident in his weathered face. "Just weeks old. They need round-the-clock care, and the rehabilitation centres are at capacity." Ellie ran a hand through her auburn hair, mind racing. "I told them we could take them temporarily." "That's a massive undertaking, Ellie." "We're not exactly set up for infant tiger care." Ellie nodded, determination settling in her eyes. "We'll make it work. They deserve a fighting chance." Neither Ellie nor anyone else at Wildwood could have possibly imagined how Lou would react to the tiger cub's arrival, or how that reaction would set in motion a chain of events that would culminate 3 years later, in that storm-lashed night when Lou found herself surrounded by tigers fighting for her life. The tiger cubs arrived at Wildwood Sanctuary the following morning, their tiny bodies quivering in a special transport container. Ellie and Dr. Calloway hovered anxiously as the wildlife officers completed the necessary paperwork, eager to assess the condition of their new charges. "All males," explained Officer Ramirez, a weary expression crossing her face. We estimate they're about 4 weeks old. They've been kept in deplorable conditions." As the container was carefully opened in the sanctuary's medical facility, 3 pairs of blue-green eyes blinked up at the small audience of staff. Their orange coats were dull, tiny ribcages visible with each breath, but they were alert, a good sign according to Dr. Calloway. "They're dehydrated, malnourished, but remarkably resilient," he noted, gently examining the smallest cub. "With proper care, they should recover." Lou had been curled up in her usual spot in the corner of the medical room, seemingly dozing. But the moment the container opened, her head lifted sharply, ears perked forward with unusual intensity. She rose to her feet, nose twitching, emitting a soft whine that caught Ellie's attention. "Lou, stay," Ellie commanded gently, concerned the cubs might be frightened by the dog's presence. But Lou didn't lunge or bark, as might be expected. Instead, she slowly approached, her body language showing neither aggression nor fear, just an unmistakable curiosity, and something else Ellie couldn't quite name. "I've never seen her act like this," Ellie whispered to Dr. Calloway. "Should we take her out, Doctor?" Calloway shook his head, watching with professional interest. "Let's observe for a moment. This is quite unusual behavior." Lou inched closer to the examination table, her gentle brown eyes fixed on the tiger cubs. The smallest cub let out a pitiful mewl, and Lou's response was immediate, a soft, nurturing whine that sounded almost maternal. "She's responding to them," murmured Margaret Reynolds, who had arrived at the sanctuary upon hearing the news of the cubs. "I've read about cross-species nurturing, but never expected to witness it firsthand." Under careful supervision, Lou was allowed closer. To everyone's astonishment, she began gently licking the smallest cub's head, a clear maternal gesture. The cub, rather than showing distress, leaned into her attention. "This is extraordinary, Doctor," Calloway said, his initial skepticism giving way to fascination. "She's exhibiting classic maternal behavior." Over the next few hours, the staff prepared a special nursery area within the medical facility, complete with heating lamps and soft bedding. The plan was to bottle feed the cubs every 2 hours, a demanding schedule that would require all hands on deck. What they hadn't planned for was Lou's determination to be part of the care team. When they attempted to separate her from the cubs, she became visibly distressed, pacing and whimpering at the door. "Maybe we should consider letting her stay with them," Ellie suggested, watching Lou's anxiety. "Under supervision, of course." "It's unorthodox," Dr. Calloway admitted, stroking his salt and pepper beard. "But then again, these are extraordinary circumstances." After much discussion, they decided to give it a try. With the first feeding session, they discovered that Lou's presence had a calming effect on the cubs. They suckled more eagerly on their bottles when nestled against her warm fur. "She's providing what we simply can't," Ellie observed with wonder. Comfort, security, a heartbeat to sleep against. Days turned into weeks, and the transformation was remarkable. The cubs, now named Leo, Rafa, and Theo, thrived under the combined care of the sanctuary staff and their unlikely canine mother. Lou was tireless in her devotion, cleaning them after meals, gently correcting them with nudges when they became too rough in play, and providing constant warmth and affection. Word of the extraordinary relationship spread, drawing attention from wildlife experts and media. Dr. Anton Patel, a renowned expert in animal behavior from the University of Colorado, arrived to document this rare cross-species bond. "What we're witnessing defies conventional understanding," Dr. Patel explained as he observed Lou patiently allowing the growing cubs to clamber over her. "This Labrador has essentially suppressed her canine instincts to adopt what would naturally be considered predators. The implications for our understanding of animal cognition and emotional capacity are profound." Not everyone was convinced this arrangement was in the cubs' best interest. Jennifer Harlow, a tiger specialist consulted by the sanctuary, expressed concerns during her evaluation visit. While the dog's care has undoubtedly saved these cubs' lives in the short term, we must consider their long-term development. They need to learn tiger behaviors, not dog behaviors, she cautioned. There will come a point when this relationship may do more harm than good. Ellie understood the concern, but couldn't deny the evidence before her eyes. Under Lou's nurturing, the once fragile cubs were now robust, playful youngsters with glossy coats and bright eyes. More importantly, they displayed normal tiger behaviors during play, practicing stalking and pouncing on each other, skills they would need as adults. We're monitoring their development closely, Ellie assured the specialist, and we have a transition plan in place for when the time comes. That time, however, was approaching faster than anyone anticipated. At 3 months old, the cubs had grown substantially, their increasing size and strength becoming a potential hazard to Lou, whose patient tolerance seemed limitless even as their playful bites became more forceful. The decision loomed on the horizon, casting a shadow over the heartwarming scene of Lou curled protectively around her growing tiger family. Soon, they would need to be separated, a necessary step for everyone's safety, but one that Ellie dreaded with every fibre of her being. The inevitable day arrived with the first snowfall of winter. Leo, Rafa, and Theo had grown remarkably over their 3 months under Lou's care. Once tiny, helpless cubs that fit in the palm of a hand, they now weighed over 40 pounds each, their baby fuzz giving way to more defined striping, their playful swats carrying enough force to leave bruises. Ellie stood at the observation window, watching Lou gently wrestle with Theo, the most rambunctious of the three. The Labrador's patient tolerance was remarkable, but even she occasionally winced when play became too rough. "We can't postpone this any longer, Doctor," Calloway said quietly, joining her at the window. "Lou took a paw to the face yesterday that nearly caught her eye." Ellie nodded, her throat tight. "I know." "The transition habitat is ready. The staff has been prepped." The plan had been meticulously developed. The cubs would move to a specialized enclosure where they could observe other tigers from a safe distance while still receiving human care. It was a necessary step toward their eventual integration with the adult tiger population and away from their canine mother. "Lou's going to take this hard," Ellie murmured, watching as the Labrador patiently groomed Leo's face. "Animals are remarkably adaptable, Doctor," Calloway reassured her, though his voice carried a note of uncertainty. "And Lou has always been exceptional." The separation was handled with the utmost care. While Lou was taken for her morning walk with Ellie, the cubs were transferred to their new habitat. The staff had debated whether to allow a final goodbye, but ultimately decided against it, fearing it would only confuse both Lou and the cubs. When Lou returned to find the nursery empty, her reaction broke Ellie's heart. The Labrador searched every corner, sniffing frantically, her tail drooping lower with each passing minute. She let out a mournful whine that seemed to echo through the quiet room. "I'm so sorry, girl," Ellie whispered, kneeling beside her faithful companion. "They had to move on." "Just like your own puppies would have." For days afterward, Lou's spirits remained visibly dampened. She would wander to the now empty nursery and lie there for hours, her soulful brown eyes fixed on the door as if expecting her adopted offspring to return at any moment. Margaret Reynolds, witnessing Lou's grief during a funding visit, was visibly moved. "Perhaps we should let her see them, just from a distance, for closure." Dr. Calloway considered this suggestion. "It might help, but it could also prolong her attachment. Let's give her time to adjust naturally first." Gradually, Lou began to resume her former routines. She accompanied Ellie on rounds, carried small tools for the maintenance staff, and greeted visitors with a subdued version of her once exuberant wags. The spark in her eyes, however, remained dimmed. Meanwhile, the tiger cubs flourished in their new environment. Under the guidance of the sanctuary's tiger specialists, they learned to hunt with provided enrichment activities, their natural instincts sharpening with each passing week. They grew rapidly, their bodies transforming from cub plumpness to adolescent sleekness. Their development is right on track, Jennifer Harlow confirmed during her monthly assessment. You'd never know they had such an unusual start in life. 6 months after the separation, Dr. Anton Patel returned to Wildwood to follow up on his research. "I'd like to conduct a controlled observation," he proposed, "to see if there's any recognition between Lou and the cubs after this time apart." The experiment was arranged with careful protocols. Lou would be allowed to view the tigers, now nearly adult-sized at 180 pounds each, through the reinforced observation glass, with handlers ready to intervene if she showed signs of distress. On the appointed day, Ellie led Lou to the viewing area. The Labrador seemed initially disinterested, following only out of loyalty to her human companion. But as they approached the glass, something changed. Lou's ears perked forward, her nose twitching rapidly. She pressed against the barrier, an eager whine escaping her throat. On the other side, Leo was the first to notice. The young tiger froze mid-stride, his head swiveling toward the observation window. Rafa and Theo quickly followed suit, all 3 tigers fixated on the golden Labrador who had once been their entire world. "Extraordinary," Dr. Patel whispered, recording the interaction. "There's clear recognition." For several minutes, the unlikely family stood separated by glass, Lou's tail wagging with increasing excitement, the tigers approaching with cautious interest. Theo, always the boldest, pressed a massive paw against the glass where Lou's nose touched from the other side. "They remember her," Ellie said, tears welling in her eyes. "After all this time." As spring turned to summer, both Lou and her former charges settled fully into their separate lives. The tigers were gradually introduced to the sanctuary's adult tigers, while Lou resumed her role as Wildwood's unofficial therapy dog, her spirits finally restored. No one could have predicted that in just a few months' time, a catastrophic storm would test the bonds formed during those precious early weeks, bonds that, despite separation and growth, remained unbreakably strong beneath the surface. 2 years had passed since Lou first welcomed the tiger cubs into her heart. Montana summers were typically mild, but climate change had brought increasingly volatile weather to the region. The meteorologists had been tracking the massive storm system for days, upgrading it from a severe thunderstorm to a potential supercell as it approached Wildwood Sanctuary. "All non-essential staff need to evacuate now," Ellie instructed, raising her voice over the howling wind that rattled the windows of the main building. "Essential personnel, remember your emergency assignments. Our priority is animal safety." Dr. Calloway nodded grimly, distributing walkie-talkies to the skeleton crew that would remain. "Keep communication channels open. If the situation deteriorates further, we'll implement full evacuation protocols." Ellie knelt beside Lou, securing a bright orange vest around the Labrador's chest. "You stay with me, girl. No wandering off today." The first thunderclap hit like an explosion, causing the lights to flicker ominously. Lou pressed against Ellie's leg, trembling. Despite her years of training, thunderstorms remained her one insurmountable fear. "I'm going to check the backup generators," Ellie informed Dr. Calloway, gripping Lou's leash tightly, "then make a final round of the large cat enclosures." By the time they reached the tiger habitat, the storm had intensified dramatically. Wind-driven rain lashed against them with needle-like intensity. A massive crack echoed overhead as a century-old oak splintered, sending a large branch crashing through the perimeter fence. "Control! We have breach in Sector 7!" Ellie shouted into her radio, struggling to be heard above the storm. No animal containment compromised, but we need maintenance. Her words were cut short as Lou, panicked by a deafening thunderclap directly overhead, yanked backwards with unexpected force. The sudden movement, combined with the slick walkway, sent Ellie sprawling. The leash slipped from her grasp as Lou bolted in blind terror. "Lou!" Ellie scrambled to her feet, catching a glimpse of golden fur disappearing around the service building. "Control! My dog is loose! I'm in pursuit!" The next few minutes were chaos as Ellie searched frantically, calling Lou's name into the howling wind. The sanctuary's emergency lights cast eerie shadows across the paths, visibility reduced to mere feet by the driving rain. When her radio crackled with Dr. Calloway's voice, his words froze her blood. "Ellie, security cameras show Lou has somehow entered the tiger habitat. East side, near the water feature." Ellie ran as she had never run before, heart hammering in her chest. The tiger habitat housed 6 adult tigers, including the 3 that Lou had raised, now fully grown at over 400 pounds each. While Leo, Rafa and Theo had recognized Lou through glass 6 months ago, they had since been fully integrated with the other tigers. Would they remember her now? Would their wild instincts override any lingering bond? Reaching the observation deck, Ellie could make out shapes moving through the rain. Lou stood trembling in the center of the habitat, her golden coat plastered to her frame, making her appear smaller and more vulnerable than ever. "I'm going in," Ellie said into her radio, reaching for the emergency access panel. "Negative, Doctor." Calloway's response was immediate. "Too dangerous. Security is bringing tranquilizer rifles." "There's no time," Ellie protested, watching in horror as 6 tigers emerged from various shelters, their attention fixed on the intruder in their territory. The largest tiger, a male named Sultan with no connection to Lou, took a menacing step forward, his tail lashing. Lou cowered, frozen in terror, a whimper escaping her throat. What happened next defied all natural explanation. 3 tigers suddenly moved with lightning speed, positioning themselves between Lou and the approaching Sultan. Leo, flanked by his brothers Rafa and Theo, stood guard over the trembling Labrador. Their posture was unmistakable to anyone versed in tiger behavior, protective, not aggressive. Sultan paused, clearly confused by this unexpected development. A tense standoff ensued, broken only when Leo issued a warning growl that sent a clear message to the other tigers. "This dog is under our protection." One by one, the unrelated tigers retreated to their shelters, apparently deciding that this strange situation wasn't worth challenging the 3 brothers, who had established themselves as a cohesive unit within the habitat's hierarchy. The danger from the other tigers averted, Leo, Rafa and Theo turned their attention to Lou. In a display that brought tears to Ellie's eyes, the massive cats gently nudged the Labrador, their rough tongues carefully grooming her wet fur just as she had once groomed them as cubs. "It's not possible," whispered Dr. Patel, who had remained at the sanctuary to observe the tiger's behavior during the storm. After 2 years, with minimal contact, they shouldn't remember her, let alone protect her. "Love doesn't follow scientific rules," Ellie replied simply, watching through tears as Lou's terror subsided, her tail giving a tentative wag as she recognized her grown children. When the sanctuary staff finally retrieved Lou using a specialized extraction protocol, she was found curled between Leo's massive paws, all 4 animals sheltering together from the storm that raged around them. In the years that followed, the story of Lou and her tiger cubs became legendary at Wildwood Sanctuary. Supervised visits between Lou and her boys became a regular occurrence, drawing researchers from around the world to study the enduring bonds that defied natural instinct and scientific explanation. Margaret Reynolds funded a special research center at the sanctuary, dedicated to studying cross-species relationships and the emotional capacities of animals. Dr. Patel's extensive research paper on Lou and the tigers became required reading in veterinary schools nationwide. But for Ellie, watching Lou contentedly napping in a patch of sunshine while three massive tigers lounged nearby behind safety glass. The most important lesson was far simpler. Love, in its purest form, recognizes no boundaries. Not time, not species, not separation. Once formed, such bonds become part of the very fabric of existence, unbreakable and eternal. I hope you enjoyed this story. Subscribe to my channel so you don't miss touching stories. Leave a like and then comment below what you thought of the emotional stories. See you in the next video.